Hello everyone and welcome to Burnt Toaster Productions. I'm your host, Burnt Toaster. So this challenge run has a sad reason for existing. Some time ago, Paul from the channel Mitten Squad sadly passed away. And in light of that, I simply wish to pay my respects and do a fun themed challenge run in his memory. Anyway, I have to preface this video and tell you this isn't pure vanilla Skyrim. I'll have some mods installed. Most notably the unofficial patch, a mod that makes weapons of Skyrim look a little more realistic, some snarky loading screen tips, the cloaks and capes mod, and a map mod which makes roads easier to see, as well as a map mod to get rid of that fog. Because there's nothing worse than a map that you can't read. I understand the title of the video is a bit weird, but legally distinct enough to ward off Mr. Walt from pulling out a pew-pew and ending my channel's existence. Alright, let's get to those rules already. I must be a Khaj. I'm restricted to practically no armor, only being able to wear some type of footwear and a cloak. I can only use one-handed swords. Magic is barred from use. Shouts are allowed, but only when necessary. Companions are not allowed. The difficulty will be set to adept for now. If I feel like it is beginning to be way too easy, I'll bump it up, and if it ends up being a little too hard, I'll bump it back down, but I cannot go below adept. Period. And now, it's time to start this run. Our journey starts as Alduin in Skyrim, in a prison convoy going to Helgen. Once we stop, everyone gets off and waits for their name to be called. After a horse-loving boy meets his fate, we get to make our character. I've already locked in a race within the rules, so I'll be a Khaj. I initially started out with a particular idea for what the fur on the face would look like. But because I have to rely on predetermined regions made by Bethesda, it didn't go so well. So I decided on something reminiscent of an orange tabby. Because anyone that has owned one knows just how unhinged they can be at times. Anyway, after the finishing touches, we name him. Well, I had nothing creative, so I just named him after the title of the video. Mostly so I don't get confused and try to play this character when I'm not recording. One dead guy later, and it's our turn to walk up to the headsman's block. Until the big black dragon pops up and screams at everyone. In the confusion, I blast past this little area by running like a crackhead with rabies, and decide to go with Ralof, only because laws don't apply to this Khaj and he will not abide by them. Once my hands were free, I took the boots off of Gunyar's body to wear them, and then grab whatever else he has to sell later. When the Imperials came through, I hid near the entrance, because I don't have a sword just yet. You got this, Ralof. I'm just gonna, chill out here by the exit. Ralof eventually takes out the Imperials, so I take their stuff, arm myself with one of their swords, and continue on. Just as a note, even though I have the Anniversary Edition, because it was on a pretty decent sale, I won't be using much, if any, of the stuff from it. I might use some boots, and that's it. Anyway, Ralof and I clear out the area with ease and eventually come across the torture room. As you could probably guess, a mostly unarmored, feral, human-sized cat took out these torturers like they were nothing. Yeah, I thought the enemies in this entire section were too easy, but the last straw was a bear. The poor thing got body slammed so damn fast that I needed to check if I was still on adept difficulty. After seeing that was the case, I decided to bump it up to expert. I have a feeling I'll likely regret increasing the difficulty later, but that was just too damn easy. Once I'm outside, I run to the standing stones and activate the warrior stone so my one-handed skill can increase just a bit faster. Afterwards, I located EmberShard mine, killed the guy that was standing outside, and went to Riverwood to sell off all of this extra gear. The good thing about this run is the fact that I'm going to have tons of money. The trade-off is the simple fact that I'm not going to have much in the way of protecting myself besides a pitiful little block. When I sell everything, I get a steel sword, because I don't want this cheaply made Imperial shit. Then I head to EmberShard mine to search for 2 linen wraps. The only reason why is so I can actually make a cloak. However, this also allows me to get some more XP, because I'm going in there, killing every bandit I see, and yoinking all their valuables so I can get some money for things like potions. I know I'm going to need them. While in here, I do a little bit of sneaking because I can see it being required for some areas due to the fact that enemies later on will likely smack me harder than an abused housewife if I just run up to them. Well, I found expert to be a little too easy and bumped the difficulty to master. Now that's the challenge I was looking for. Feeling like master is adequate for now, I go through the mine with some difficulty. I actually had to use a saved level up for a fight, as any Skyrim player knows, two-handed fighters have the ability to execute you when you have about half health. After all the bandits are defeated, I take my time to loot. I found some gear, money, and gems, but only one linen wrap. Somewhat happy with my haul, I go back to Riverwood so I can sell some of that stuff off and continue the main quest. I talk to Girder, who tells me to go to Whiterun, but before that, I have one more stop to make. That stop is Bleak Falls Barrow. One reason is to grab some more linen, and the other is to do a little sequence breaking and find that stupid stone for Farengar before I make it to the city. Nothing happens on the way there, although as is usually the case, there are some bandits right outside the entrance which will probably push my teeth in. I mean, they almost did, but this cat fights pretty well and bandits just kinda suck. This proves how bad they are. Anyway, after slaughtering the bandits, I go through the door and start exploring the dungeon proper. There's not much in here. Some bandits, a few skeevers, and plenty of Draugr. Eventually, I got myself a few linen wraps and pushed onward to get that rock. Oh, and the claw. The most worrisome thing so far is the wounded frostbite spider, because this big boy can cause some not so fun poison damage which will almost kill me. But I have found a tactic that works. I simply have to run away when I'm severely injured enough and wait an hour. Then I can get back in there and teach it a lesson. Until I almost die again. Yeah, this sort of repeats a few times due to how tanky this spider is. I actually decided to leave the dungeon for a bit and go to Riverwood to make the cloak. It was starting to bother me a bit that I didn't have one yet. So afterwards, I head back in there and kill it. I had to use a level up before defeating it. I wasn't thrilled about that since that means enemies will only get tougher. With the spider defeated, it's time to cut Arvel down, in both ways. Getting him out of the webbing and, well, just slaughtering him. I will never let this little rat survive as long as I can help it. After slicing up Arvel, I grab the claw and some stuff I'll end up selling after all of this dungeon crawling is done. Next up, we have some Draugr to take care of. The good thing is most of them are basically sleeping, so it's a really good opportunity to train my sneak skill a bit and also increase my one-handed skill. So far, they're not too difficult like usual. Don't worry, something disappointing will happen later on. I make it through traps and Draugr fairly easily, until I came across this restless Draugr that had put me in my place fairly quickly. To be fair, I was barely doing damage to him and he was taking a good third of my health. After dying twice, I decided to lower the difficulty a level, simply because I know an insanity-inducing losing battle when I see one. This time, when I reach that Draugr, I'm the one putting him down for a permanent dirt nap. Further in, I complete Baby's first puzzle door and make my way to the boss of this dungeon. If you could really call him that. Sometimes he actually does his job and fights you, and other times he's kinda slow on the draw. This time he was a joke and didn't put up too much of a fight. I grab the stone and head out. I return back to Riverwood, give the claw back, and then steal it for myself. It's made of solid gold. Could you really blame me? Now's time to get to Whiterun. The journey there was pretty uneventful. Nothing really happened. Anyway, I have to talk to the Jarl and tell him that Riverwood is possibly in danger of a dragon attack. When I tell him, he sends some guards over there and then tells me he has another job. This is the job for Farengar, which means I can turn it in right here, right now. Well, I don't get the opportunity to celebrate too much because a dragon attacked one of the watchtowers. I actually started a new recording just in case it took me about an hour to kill the overgrown lizard. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I don't have the ability to use ranged attacks to coax it down, so I have to sit in the watchtower until it lands. Then a guard decided to block the only way out. I tried to squeeze past him, but decided to bump him with my sword, and that seemed to work pretty well. I guess he was frozen with fear, which, okay, that's understandable. The fight with the dragon wasn't super long like I was anticipating. although I did almost die quite a few times, which was kind of terrifying. After a stretch of fighting, I defeated the dragon and got one of those special kill animations on top of it, which looks about as ridiculous as I thought it was going to. Check it out. I also decided to be toxic to this dragon and then went back into Whiterun to tell the Jarl that I had killed the beast. With all that done, I can now go to Solitude for one little thing. You remember when I said I wouldn't really use any content that came with buying the Anniversary Edition? Well, there's a pair of boots that I want and kind of need. Sadly, they offer no protection for some odd reason and serve only for appearances. And well, now I'm the proud owner of a pair of Captain's boots. Before sauntering off to meet some old men that quite literally screamed for me from a mountaintop, I want to get a quest done to increase my one-handed and blocking skills. Mostly so I might have an easier time with combat since it is pretty deadly right now. So I go and talk to Amren about getting that sword back to him. Oh yeah, speaking of weapons, I grabbed another mod. I had developed the hankering for a rapier, and well, the one thing that comes close to it is a sword that's Creation Club content, and it's quite strong. However, Bethesda considers it a saber, and I still want some semblance of balance, so I'll add ordinary weapons into the mod list. Will it bother me that I'm swinging a sword around that was made for thrusting? Yes. Will I pass up the opportunity to have a more complete character due to a lack of historical accuracy regarding the use of said weapon? No. I want my boy Khaj to have a rapier, and he'll get one. Well, hopefully. Anyway, on to the task at hand. I have to get to Halted Stream Camp and grab that sword. I tried to be slick and gave up as soon as I was spotted. With the outside clear, I can head inside and grab that sword. Well, that actually ended up kind of short-lived due to the bandit chief holding a big two-handed weapon. Yeah, they can execute me when I still have more than half of my health left. Though, to be fair, I have no armor, so that's probably why. After dying 2 or 3 times, I decided to lower the difficulty down to Adept, mostly because I was already tired of my repeated executions. This time, that bandit made me use a stored level up because he's already taught me to fear him. After a little bit of fighting, he got executed and I felt a nice wave of relief. I never want to go through that again. Well, now I can grab that sword and give it to Amren for a free level in one-handed and block. While in town, I take the opportunity to sell some stuff and make my way to the Greybeards afterwards. On my way there, I came across Valtheim Towers. Valtheim? But yeah, I don't really know how to pronounce it. The bandits here weren't a huge challenge. I got a free speech level up from the doofus out front, killed her, stealthed my way up to one of the archers, took him out, and tried to get an archer on the bridge. It didn't work out, so I had to fight. But there was a slight problem. By the time I took about half of them out, I spotted another chief with a two-handed weapon. Even on Adept, I'm not taking any chances. I made it back down to the road and fought him there, just so I could possibly run if I really had to. Most of the fight consisted of me staggering him, staying outside of his range, and occasionally going in for some attacks. It worked out in the end, but I still don't want to fight more two-handed weapon-wielding bandit chiefs anytime soon. After a decent bit of walking, I made it to Iverstead. The journey was pretty uneventful, and I'm actually grateful for that. Time to make it up that mountain. For the most part, it was peaceful. Just a wolf, an ice wolf that made me use a level up, and a frost troll. I wanted to test my mettle against it, so like a moron, I rushed him and promptly died. But that does mean I'm going to have to take a more non-violent approach to get through that area. I load back in, climb back up to that point, and do my best to sneak past the troll, but I got spotted and had to hide until it lost interest. I quickly skitter forward to get away from that frosty feline-hating orangutan. Before you know it, Khaj is finally at the old man's doorstep. I practice shouting and then get a task before I can be formally recognized as Dragonborn. I have to go retrieve a horn from a crypt. Well, I took a carriage to Morthal since that crypt is pretty close by and, well, I just started walking there. When I make it to the crypt, I see some fighting between a necromancer and some bandits. After settling that dispute, I enter the crypt and there's more fighting happening. Well, these idiots only have robes on and are squishier than me, so a face-to-face confrontation isn't out of the question. Once I'm done with those goobers, the rest of the place is just filled with the usual stuff. You know, drugger, skeletons, and spiders. During my exploration, I found an Imperial katana. This is a weapon from the Ordinary Weapons mod, and since it isn't a vanilla weapon or the rapier I somewhat need to fit this character, I decided not to use it even though it is marginally better. I did get a little lost because Bethesda sucks at local map design. Eventually though, my monkey brain found the right place to go. I have a puzzle that requires the use of the whirlwind sprint shout, which like every other puzzle in Skyrim is terribly easy. Some sneaking later, I come across the spiders, and due to the fact that they can easily poison me, I run through without even attempting the fight and close the door behind me. Of course the horn isn't here, and all that's left is a note. So I make my way to Riverwood, ask about the attic room, and Delphine finally gives me the damn horn. Time to take it back to the old guys. Once I hand over the horn, they finally recognize me as Dragonborn. Thank the Goblin God. I didn't want to stay there for much longer. They smelled of fish and discarded diapers. It's just, ugh. With all that done, it's time to head back to Riverwood and talk to Delphine. She leads me into a secret room and I see a new sword to play with. I don't care what she's talking about. I want a new weapon. So for now, Khaj is going to channel his inner weeb and use the blade sword until we find that rapier. Well, I mean, the blade sword is vanilla content after all. Anyway, Delphine wants us to head to Kynesgrove and kill a dragon that may or may not rise from the dead there. Before traveling, I decided to enhance my new sword, if only minimally. After that, I fast traveled to the towers where I evicted those bandits from life. Now it's time to head over there. Not much really happened. There was an orc selling skooma and I killed her. Then there was a thief attempting to mug Khaj and Footwear. I don't know about you, but I personally wouldn't want to try to rob someone who is only wearing boots and a cloak or cape. They're probably crazy. Well, it looks like this elf lacked brain capacity and got annihilated. After that, it was smooth sailing and we finally reached Kynesgrove. There was a woman who exclaimed that a dragon was attacking, and she was kind of right. The big black dragon from the start of this run is bringing his kin back from the dead. He probably feels lonely or wants someone to read him bedtime stories. Regardless, the deceased dragon starts reforming and coming back to life. Too bad for the dragon, I can attack it while it's resurrecting and deal some damage before it can even fight back. It wasn't that rough of a fight all in all, though this one had frost breath, which makes it a little bit more of a pain than the fire breathing variety. That's simply because frost damage takes my stamina away as well, and that means I can't bash or use power attacks when I'm out of stamina. Still, it wasn't enough for it to win due to Khaj chugging potions back like a certain stick-wielding, dress-wearing alcoholic. With the dragon defeated, Delphine believes that Khaj is indeed the Dragonborn. It took you long enough. I stop by Riverwood and wait until daytime so I can sell some stuff and get on with the next quest. After selling most of the extra gear I had, I stepped outside and saw 3 hired thugs that were ready to turn poor Khaj into a fur rug. The fight wasn't too difficult, so I took all 3 of them out with only moderate effort. Of course, that means I have more loot to sell, so I had to make a stop by Whiterun to get rid of some of it. When I'm done, Delphine has returned and has come up with a way to get me into the Thalmor embassy, to hopefully get some information on the dragons. This blonde doofus thinks the elves are behind it. Anyway, I have to go and meet some wood elf in Solitude and give him the stuff I'm going to need in order to survive the ordeal. I give him my sword, the only clothes that are important, and some restoratives to keep me alive. After that, Delphine forces Khaj to wear a full outfit that makes him want to vomit. Now it's time to get on that carriage and get to the party. Thankfully, the first part is pretty normal and peaceful, so I don't have to worry about giving everyone in the immediate area CSD. All I have to do is get some liquor and give it to this man right here. He'll cause a distraction and allow the manlet and I to sneak through the kitchens. This is where my gear is stashed, so I dress appropriately, grab my sword, and cut my way through all the Thalmor that are here. That's pretty much all there is to this place. It's just beat down some high elves and find the information we need, then get the hell out. So after slaughtering most of the embassy guards, we find a couple of dossiers and a report on an investigation regarding the dragons. However, we must go into the dungeon of all places and find some more info. Once we find it, we can leave. The only issue, there's a frost troll down here blocking my escape. Well, not really. I ran through without any issues. Can't say anything for the other guy though. Once I'm out, I go around to various shops and sell off the loot acquired from the embassy and head back to Riverwood. I give Delphine the info I found and she gives me my next task, to find some guy named Esbern. Since I have my next task, I head over to Ripton and try to talk Brynjolf into giving me the info on Esbern for free rather than do his worthless quest. Well, that didn't work out, so it looks like I'm on my own for this one. Thankfully, I do somewhat remember where Esbern is located in the Ratway. There's not much down here, just some lowlifes which can't put up much of a fight against Khaj and his sword arm. Eventually, I make it to the Ratway vaults and I must be in the right area because the Thalmor are here too. Luckily, they're not too tough, however, they aren't completely incompetent either. I stumble upon this little area that has a couple of crazy people in it, which was a little startling because I normally just kill everyone, but I decided to play it cool this time. Hafid the Deaf freaks out when you open her door, which means you have to put her down. Then there was this guy dressed in chef attire that called Khaj a juicy morsel. Huh. You rarely see cannibalism in Elder Scrolls, well, besides the thing with the Bosmer and Namira's Daedric quest in this game. And in this context, it isn't necessarily cannibalism, but you get what I mean. Once he drops, I take his hat. I was planning on buying one from Radiant Raiment in Solitude, but I guess the Goblin God blessed me and gave me one for free. It looks a little goofy, but since it provides no protection and makes Khaj look like he was touched by Sheogorath himself, I decided to keep it on. Eventually, I find Esbern staying in his room like a socially awkward teen with enough locks and chains for other purposes. That aside, I take a few moments to loot some stuff from his hovel, and once I'm done, we head out. I open the door and I'm greeted by a Thalmor soldier. Yeah, looks like we're gonna have to fight to escape our impending doom. The only enemy I had some trouble with was the Thalmor wizard, because he decided to summon a flame atronach that was preoccupied with trying to singe Khaj's fur. Before I forget, you may notice that Esbern is following me, and technically I don't consider him a companion. He only needs me to take him to Delphine and that's it. Once we get out of Riften's hellhole, I fast travel to Riverwood so we can get on with the quest. After the two reunite, I'm given my next task of heading to Karthspire to aid in finding Skyhaven Temple again. But before I do that, I go around to sell the loot I've accrued from murdering people. Normally I'd get over there and do this quest, but I've waited for that rapier long enough. Good news is I can forge it. The bad news is I need a smithing skill of 30 in order to make it, and due to wanting it, I'll also have to level up and start making a bunch of steel armor, which means enemies are going to be at least a bit tougher. So I go around to various smiths, buy their materials, and start pounding metal into wearable armor. Thankfully, I've gotten a bunch of money from selling loot that I've collected during the run. After a while, I finally have 30 in smithing. Of course, I leveled up again, but now I have the capability to craft a Breton rapier. If I have the required materials, that is. Well, a steel and corundum ingot are easy enough to buy, but I need a quicksilver ingot as well. After searching around the shops and finding naught, I decided to look online to find one place that has an ingot just lying around. And it seems Castle Dower has a couple. I get over there, yoink them both, and head to a forge. Now I can create the rapier, and we're set for the rest of the run. To make travel quite a bit quicker and easier, I took a carriage to Markarth, went in there and killed that guy that was going to kill that woman, and then hit up the apothecary to get some potions. Once I have the potions, it's time to head out and meet Delphine and Esbern. Around the tail end of my journey, I have the joy of fighting two dragons at once. One of them was a blood dragon with frost breath. That was one of the more terrifying moments I've had in Skyrim. Thankfully, Delphine and Esbern were around to lend some support, although I ended up dying to a forsworn pillager and had to do it all over again. This time I avoid the pillager and go into the cave. Khaj then has to get through a few puzzles and eventually we get to the blood seal. Huh, that was pretty simple. Now the door to the temple is open and we can continue this quest, except there's a slight problem. Delphine's stupid brain quit working and she won't move from this spot unless I assault her and make her angry. It seems we're at a bit of a standstill. But don't worry, I found the solution eventually. I just have to force her to equip a torch via console commands. All I have to say is, I'm glad I'm on PC for this run, because I didn't want to start this run all over. Once Delphine gets over to the wall, Esbern tells us what the wall says. The ancient Nords had used a shout to take down Alduin, and since none of us know where to look for more information on it, it's time to go to the Greybeards and ask them about it. We get to the old guys that smell like a dumpster on day 5 of a summer heat wave and ask Arngir about the shout. Of course, he sniffs out the fact that the Blades have been talking to me about saving the world and gets a little uppity. If he wasn't essential, Khaj would have roundhouse kicked him off the mountain. After being put back into his place by one of the other old guys that sit around like a plant, he tells me to go and meet their leader at the summit. So the Greybeards teach us the clear skies shout that we'll have to use in order to progress normally. Naturally, the mountain also has ice wraiths, but they aren't too much of a challenge and die pretty quickly. Eventually, we reach the summit to meet Paarthurnax. Before we get into any details, I must greet him as a dragon would. So he teaches me the fire breath shout and I toast his nose a little bit. Afterwards, he's pretty happy and we talk business. Old Parth tells me that Alduin was sent forward in time, and because of that, there's something a little funky about the top of the mountain. Something like the fabric of reality is thin here. If I can get my hands on an Elder Scroll, I'll be able to see things as they were in the past. However, Paarthurnax doesn't know where an Elder Scroll is, so I have to either ask the Blades or the Greybeards. Well, since Delphine is already one of the most hated characters in the game and she had a brain malfunction, I decided to ask the smelly old men. Arngir directs me to the College of Winterhold, which means I have the fabulous opportunity to visit a dying city that no one really cares about. As soon as I get over there, a dragon attacks, and after what feels like 3 years of the guard shooting arrows at it, I take the glory and continue on. In order to get in, I have to demonstrate that I'm Dragonborn, so I shout and I'm led inside. I go and have a talk with the librarian. Since they don't actually house an Elder Scroll here, he gave me some books on them instead. The Ruminations of Elder Scrolls is the one I need to read, and Urag tells me that Septimus went somewhere to the north of Winterhold. I'm not excited for the next little stretch since I have to go through a semi-lengthy dungeon crawl filled with Thalmor after I talk with Dollar Store Farnsworth. Anyway, I get over there and talk to the guy. He rambles on about some nonsense that I'm not interested in, and finally reveals the location that has the Elder Scroll I need. So, time to take some small preparations in the form of buying some healing and stamina potions, then make my way over there. The journey there wasn't too bad, well besides a dragon that made me rush to the entrance because I didn't want to deal with it. For a majority of this dungeon, I'm going to rely on stealth, mostly so I don't get into too many fights back to back, and well, you get bonus damage from sneak attacks. Thalmor are slightly scary because of the fact that they can be a little tough and often use poison on their weapons. I don't have any poison resistance and won't have any due to deciding not to use jewelry. Poison can and will wreck our poor protagonist. There's not much that really goes on in this dungeon. I'm using stealth to my advantage here and getting through without too many complications. Although I tried doing some Assassin's Creed type shit and failed miserably both times. Doesn't matter in the end, those Thalmor didn't stand a chance. Anyway, I finally made it to Blackreach and it's still probably one of my favorite areas. However, I fully committed to stealth and got through without having to fight anything. Once I reach the end, I just press buttons until the next one is available, then we finally have it, the Elder Scroll. Now all I have to do is go back to the time wound atop the mountain and learn that shout. When we reach the peak of the mountain, Paarthurnax is there to greet us and goes on about how this is the only way to learn the shout to defeat Alduin. Well, that's exactly what we do as there's no reason to delay. So Khaj basically goes back in time and learns the shout after the ancient Nord heroes use it, then he's warped back to reality. While we were fiddling around and learning things, Alduin dropped by to say hello and give us some snack cakes. In all seriousness, this is our first fight with Alduin, so hopefully my stock of potions will hold up. For this fight, I have to use the Dragon Rend shout to force Alduin to land and smack him with a rapier. This fight drags on for a while until Alduin's health bar is basically gone. After showing him who's boss, he flies off somewhere. Parth tells me that I have to find one of his allies to tell me where he went. The only way to do that is to capture one in Dragon's Reach, since it was originally made to hold a dragon. The Jarl is going to love this nice little surprise. So I go and visit the Jarl of Whiterun. I tell him I need to capture a dragon in his palace, and yeah, he's not thrilled about the plan. Partially because he'll be housing a giant fire-breathing lizard in his home, and because the war hasn't been resolved yet. Which means I need to have a temporary treaty between the Empire and Stormcloaks. Khaj is not exactly what I'd call diplomat material. Have you taken a good look at the guy? He's crazy. But, oh well, there's no use in complaining. Let's get this over with. I talked with the Greybeards to see if they would hold it. Arngir agrees, semi-begrudgingly, and sends me to find Ulfric and Tullius, which, to be honest, is a pretty easy task that just involves fast traveling to Solitude and Windhelm. After both parties have been told to meet, it's time to start this thing. I want to resolve this as soon as possible, and to do that I tell Elenwen to step on a Lego on her way out, give Riften to the Empire for Markarth, and then tell Ulfric he needs to pay for the massacre. With that, the peace treaty is set, and now it's time to go catch us a dragon. But there's a slight issue. I don't know how to get a dragon to my position. Thankfully, Esbern told me how to call one. I just need to shout a dragon's name, since dragons are apparently quite prideful. Who'd have thought? Anyway, he gives me the name of Odahviing. With all that done, I go to Whiterun and tell the Jarl I'm ready to capture my very own dragon. Since everything is set and ready, I just have to go up to the top part of Dragon's Reach and call for Odahviing. That's exactly what I do, and this poor guy gets snatched. I mean, it's kind of his fault, though. He was just standing out in the open like a doofus. Once Odahviing is still for a moment, I have to use Dragon Rend on him to force him to land. When he does, we retreat back and capture him. He tells me where Alduin went and offers to take me there. Deal. However, he's still trapped. So I tell the guard to disable the trap and he sits at the ledge ready to go whenever I give the word. Since I'm unsure of how bad it'll be there, I go ahead and save before doing anything. There's a high chance I'll need more potions after all. Even though I'm still not wholly confident in my potion stock, I hop onto Odahviing and have him fly me over to the spot. He drops me off at the entrance, and while I would prefer being closer, I'll still give him a high Uber rating. All that aside, I have to get through the area first. For the most part, I skipped as many fights as possible. I don't want to try to fight 2 dragons at once and a bunch of Draugr along with them. So I run indoors to deal with whatever Draugr are following me. After they're dead again, I run back outside and get to that temple as fast as possible. Oh, looks like I brought some friends with me too. Once I put all the Draugr to rest, I get to go through a dungeon essentially. There's not much here. I decided to rely heavily on stealth, and the only thing I really did that was different was some puzzle solving. When I get through all of that, I finally make it to the top part of the temple and head outside to the portal. Once again, I try to ignore everything and focus on the dragon priest here. Well, this dragon priest and his staff absolutely decimated me the first time and I died. The second time around, I took it a little slower, killing the Draugr and one of the dragons. The other dragon flew off and basically stayed somewhere in the distance. By the time I reached the dragon priest, I was lower on potions than I wanted to be, and the fight with him ended up taking more. At some point, I decided to go ahead and use my stored level ups as my last Hail Mary, hoping it would give me enough health to kill him. Which it did. With the dragon priest dealt with, I grab his staff and put it back in its spot to get to Sovngarde. Thank God I did. The dragon was right there waiting for me. When I get in, there's a Stormcloak soldier who is lost in the mist. Well, he didn't last too long as Alduin came around and munched on his soul. I finally get to the bridge leading to the Hall of Valor. Looks like I have to pass a test to get in. Except during my first attempt, it looks like I failed the study because Khaj just got a big axe in the shoulder and died. The second attempt was close, but I was granted entrance. I just hope my meager potion stock lasts. With all the things I had to kill, I was dangerously low at this point. So once I got inside, I grabbed every bit of food I could just in case things got a little too crazy. Then I go and meet the heroes of Sovngarde to end Alduin's existence once and for all. Before fighting him, all 4 of us had to use a Clear Skies Shout in order to get rid of this fog, which we have to do 3 times, and then I have to prepare Dragon Rend to get that flying bitch on the ground. Thankfully, the fight isn't too tough, especially since I have 3 brainless buffoons to draw as aggro. Plus, I can just stay close to his sides and back to keep myself from being injured. I think I made him a little dizzy going around in circles like that, but in the end, Khaj is victorious. I go and talk to Soon to get back to Nirn and end up at the throat of the world. There, Parth meets me, and while he is saddened by Alduin's death, he does exclaim that he hasn't felt this young in a while. And with that, the run is finished. Wait a minute, there's one last thing I need to do. It's time to kill you, you worthless troglodyte. Come here, damn it. Well, looks like I have to lay low for a while. I guess it's time to run. Where to, though? We'll figure it out when we get there. And there you have it, everyone. The run is finished. I would highly appreciate it if you like, share, and subscribe. Also, tell me in the comments if you'd like to see more of Khaj or just more semi-relaxed challenge runs like this. I still have the DLCs to go through. I do understand that some may consider this one a false challenge run, which, yeah, okay, that's fair. I did add mods into the game, but I will say that most of those mods were for personal taste and didn't change up the gameplay all that much. You could see ordinary weapons as gameplay changing, but to be fair, I ended up kind of handicapping myself by only using the Breton Rapier. I'd still be using it if I had a better weapon available anyway. It was pretty balanced though, the damage wasn't too high, but at least enough to get through the game. Plus, it's not like I had armor on. Khaj was pretty squishy throughout most of it. Huge props to the modders on screen, you all did a wonderful job on your respective mods. There's not much that I had really learned from this one, but it wasn't super serious anyway. I wanted to do something different that no one else had really done yet, and I wanted to do something in memory of one of my favorite content creators. Anyway, thank you all for watching. This has been Burnt Toaster from Burnt Toaster Productions, and I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.